So speaking of sharing the journey, we have our next panel up and ready, I think. Clint is just, where's Clint? Right here, Clint. So we're hosting a panel on automation, and I want to give Clint a plug because Clint actually started an automation community for Versa. So Clint, I'll pass it on to you.
Super. Thanks, Kelly. And we invite Peter Moorey up from SLB and Michael Wynston from Fiserv, please. We have Mike Wynston. Oh, there we go. Super.
We'll get you a handheld.
Yeah, we'll get you, Mike. Do you need a mic too? Or you have a mic?
We'll get you a handheld.
There we go. So good morning. So my name is Clint. I'm with Versa. I kind of sponsor our automation community. We meet once a month. Versa's done a really good job of exposing every single element of our solution via open APIs, so we automate very well. And this was a session to just talk a little more about automation with some customers kind of automating Versa very heavily. So if you could both introduce yourself and maybe a little bit about your company.
Sure. I can go first, I guess.
Super.
So my name is Peter Moorey. I'm a network architect working for SLB, and I manage the automation and tooling team at Schlumberger. Magid already did a great job of talking about SLB and the business side, but I thought I would just share with you a little insight that I learned when I started working at SLB, and it kind of relates to how important data is and digital in our company. So I got told this fact from one of the people in our business about this concept called measurement whilst drilling, MWD. And it's basically a process where when you're drilling a well tens of thousands of feet into the ground, the drill bit is gathering all kinds of data, telemetry, right? And it's sending it back up the drill pipe to the operator. And the way they do that is through the mud that's cycling back up through the drill pipe. So they pulse the mud as a communications bus, achieving like 4 bits per second or 40 bits per second, depending on the length of the drill pipe. So this is something that we do all the time in the business. And it's an example of kind of the importance of data. And we've been also involved in networking and the internet for, since pre-internet, right? We were using ARPANET, using the internet. And I was just researching last night on Wikipedia. The slb.com domain is the 75th domain to be registered on the internet. We were beaten by Cisco. They were the one before that, so yeah. But kind of turning it around to automation. Automation is a key part of our IT strategy. We've established technical working groups in the company across all different IT domains, and we work together to develop automated solutions.
Right. Super. And Michael?
Michael Wynston, Director of Network Architecture and Automation at Fiserv, financial services company. As I mentioned yesterday, 70% of all electronic transactions that are not cash, electronic transactions, pass through our infrastructure, whether it's banking, debit, credit, ACH, payments to governments, speeding tickets, pay it online. Essentially, the way we like to explain it is everyone in this room has typically at least 10 interactions with some Fiserv service on a daily basis. So as I said yesterday, thank you again, everyone, for being a customer. When you look at the scope of the infrastructure that we have to support, we've got well over 30,000 devices in our environment. Roughly 10 to 12,000 of those are customer devices, meaning sitting on a customer premise, either a retail or a bank or some other partner location. And then our internal infrastructure, our data centers, our edge networking, our SD-WAN, our switches and routers. For a long period of time, a lot of the infrastructure was configured, architected, and designed at the regional level. And over the past few years, past 2 or 3 years, we've made a significant effort to introduce global standards that are regionally sensitive, because different regions have different opportunities for technology consumption, so that we would be able to enable automation in the environment. Some of the things that we're focused on from an automation perspective is being able to enable our engineers to do more with less. That's a current recurring theme that I use when I talk about automation. Because as my leaders will say, we have 40,000 employees today. We will have no more than 40,000 employees tomorrow, contractors plus or minus, and our business will continue to grow. So the choice is either everyone can work more hours, or we can figure out how to do what we need to do more efficiently in those hours. And one of the things that we really focused on from an automation perspective is looking at it as a customer-driven service, where our customers are the network engineers. We went through the whole senior leadership says, automate. Okay, well, what does that actually mean? And they said, well, config push. If you automate config push, everything will be faster. And actually that is mostly BS, because what most engineers do is they spend 70% of their time gathering the information, and we call that the cost of data that's necessary to actually do the configuration, right? We've all been doing SNMP set or TFTP pushes, or hey, even secure CRT, right? You just pop the notepad in, you make the connection, and you can push it to 10 or 15 devices. So yes, config push is important, but the bulk of the time what we found has nothing to do with config push. And we only know that because we turned our automation efforts into a customer-centric effort where we spoke to the engineers, watched them work. We had network engineers who learned automation, sit with them, because one of the things we also recognized is that if we get a 15, maybe 20% penetration rate of network engineers who are willing to learn how to develop and write automation, we now consider that a win, which means I either have to figure out what to do with the other 85 to 90% of the engineers who still pull the lever this way. So if we can improve the speed at which they can pull the lever or do something on the back end that makes them more efficient, then we would not be successful in our automation journey.
Perfect. I think it was great yesterday to hear how many people treated automation as a key part of their transformation. Peter, what does automation mean to you?
I think I look at it from two different perspectives. One of them is the engineer in me that wants to have fun and do automation and learn about it. It's definitely really rewarding, and we're seeing in our organization that a lot of the engineers are actually very keen to get involved in automation. They get excited about it, they want to learn, so that's really positive. And it also helps their career progression too, right? Because these people know networking very well and it's still very relevant, but they want to advance and learn new things, right? So it's a way for them to develop their careers. But then, looking at it from an alternative perspective, which is more about the business side, we have some really talented engineers in the team, and it would be a real waste if we didn't really optimize what it is they're working on and understand what's the value of the type of automation that we've been tasking them with. And I hear a lot of people kind of focusing on the provisioning automation, and it definitely can be really valuable, but there are other areas of automation that you should probably look at as well. For example, how do you deploy software updates across all of the Versa devices? Maybe that's something you can automate, maybe that's important to your business. Or it could be to do with improving the reliability. Also automation of dependent systems, right? Because the SD-WAN is already an automated product, right? That's one of the reasons why we buy Versa, because it has ZTP, it has templating. It should be very automated already. But what isn't necessarily automated and what can become a problem is all of the intermediate or dependent systems. So your IPAM system, your TACAC, Cisco ICE, whatever you're using, your management monitoring systems, making sure that your bind variables actually match your corporate information model or master data, in terms of are all of the circuit IDs correct? Is the bandwidth correct? Is the site criticality for that device matching your business data, that kind of thing.
Michael, what does automation mean to you?
So to me, automation means, again, enabling our engineers to increase velocity, increase the reliability and consistency of our infrastructure, and enable them to create change in the environment by still reducing risk and doing the changes based on standards, based on repeatable patterns and repeatable practices. one of our focuses on automation, because of the penetration of the number of engineers who are not like you, who don't want to learn Python because, well, I use CLI, and CLI works just fine, or I click here and click there. One of the things that we've really tried to focus on also is self-service, so that the engineers who are building configurations, building the infrastructure, doing software upgrades, all of the information that they need is enabled and given to them, provided for them, at a much faster, much more consistent rate. I have a perfect example. So we use a platform that gathers all of the information in our infrastructure and can explain to us the actual current state of the environment, what the routing between point A and D is, what the VLAN configurations are. And one of the issues that we were always having was when engineers would go to perform upgrades, this ESXi host is connected to 2 switches, and it's on a port channel that's connected to these 2 switches. And one of the port channels has VLANs ABC doing 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and the other port channel has VLANs 1, 3, 5, and 7. And the engineer, who has been working all night doing software upgrades, just did show interface trunks, said, oh yeah, they're both trunks, all right, cool. Went ahead, did an upgrade, and half the ESX cluster suddenly can't talk to anything anymore. And it's a weird outage, because not everything's down, but some of them are down. You spend 4 hours just trying to figure out what's gone wrong, right? So through automation, we've enabled our engineers to say we're upgrading these 2 devices, and the common things that an engineer needs to do consistently are automated. So it will spit out, these 2 switches don't have matching VLANs, or these 2 switches connected to this ESXi host, one's a trunk port, one's actually configured as an access port. So that, again, using automation, not necessarily to just push configs, but using it in ways that ensure less ICBCs, reduce the mean time to resolution when we experience outages. And again, putting all that together enables our engineers to be able to do more, but still work less, which is a goal that we really take to heart.
Yeah, Peter.
I have a question for Mike, because we were talking yesterday or the day before about source of truth.
Yeah.
What does that? How does that help you? And
So the source of truth, right, is not the router. It's not the switch. The source of truth is what you want your infrastructure to behave like, right? And a lot of people have this misconception that if I gather all of the configs into a database, that becomes my source of truth. In reality, your source of truth should express what you want your network to do. It should be where you define the intent of your environment. So we use an open source platform called Nodobot. If you're not familiar with it, strongly recommend you look into it. The folks from Network to Code who developed that platform put a lot of time and effort into it, and there's a lot of really good information out there. Anyway, we use Nodobot as our source of truth, where we define the intention of our environment, so that when an engineer goes to build a particular device, they use the golden config templates from Nodobot. They use information that gets pulled in from our IPAM, which we spent all of last year cleaning up IPAM, killing all the spreadsheets, pulling all the data in, validating everything. It was a lot of hard work, especially with an environment as large as ours. But now we're reaping the benefits of that because we're able to use a source of truth to define the intent we want to apply to our environment. The other platform, which validates that your network is actually lining up with your intent, that provides us the routing, the current state of the environment, enables us to then go ahead, and we have all of this automations, what I was explaining a moment ago with the VLANs or BGP peering or what is it supposed to be doing based on the config templates in Autobot, and what is the actual infrastructure doing? And this year, we've got a program going on, what we call cleaning the minefield, because we have found more places than we would like to openly admit where there are landmines everywhere. And this is, because engineers have always been at work, because engineers have always done, for a good extent, done things manually, because the engineers, and I said this yesterday, and please don't take offense to this, we're not artists. When you're designing a platform, when you're designing a system, the architecture should be a repeatable, consistent, reliable pattern. It shouldn't be, well, I'm going to turn this knob on this device. I didn't turn it on that device because I want to see what this knob does, so we'll see what happens. And it's those kinds of inconsistencies that lay the landmines for the engineers who come after you. And just one more thing, to hop on that. Documentation, Visio is not a form of documentation. And I know a lot of my engineering friends go, well, we document everything. Here's the Visio for it. When you're trying to build automation, when you're trying to understand what the environment is doing, just looking at a Visio diagram with some boxes and some IP addresses, that doesn't tell me anything about the intent of that infrastructure. What are you actually trying to get that infrastructure to achieve? So using platforms like a source of truth, where you can define what you want your infrastructure to achieve, is a much better form of documentation. Because nobody ever reads the detailed low-level design guide after you've used it to actually create an as-built, which, by the way, doesn't match the low-level design, because as we were building, we found we missed a bunch of things. And everyone here has experienced that, which is why we've really made also a hard press, not just for automating the infrastructure, but automating documentation as well.
Awesome. So Peter, I've seen this automation you guys with ServiceNow. Can you go a little deeper on that? I'd love to. It's really
sure.
Cool.
It's basically an interface for our business users to request the configuration end-to-end of an SD-WAN device from Versa for them to install in the truck and take it to the field. And they don't have to talk to IT. They just order the equipment, go to our ServiceNow interface, plug in some really simple information, and we figure out for them which satellite teleport they should be connecting through. We do the subnet allocation automatically from info blocks. If it's running on a VM, we use Terraform to deploy the VM and prepare it for them. We populate all the bind data into the Versa director, and they just plug it in and take it away. So it's quite flashy. It's kind of like a poster child for automation or whatever, but it's really built on a platform that we spent a lot of years developing. We worked closely with other groups in SLB to identify what should we build our automation on. It took a long time to actually get that set up, and we're now really reaping the rewards of that. So we use Salt, which is really the core of our automation infrastructure. It takes care of subnet allocation. It makes sure that all the devices, after they're provisioned, that they're deployed in the correct management systems, that they have TACACS enabled correctly in our Cisco ICE platform. There's a lot more to deploying SD-WAN than just provisioning and plugging in the bind variables.
So what have you seen for results in your automation program, like business results?
So for us, because we have a very large managed client presence, and we're converting it from one legacy type of technology to Versa SD-WAN, one of the biggest challenges that we ran into immediately were engineers were trying to reconfigure the infrastructure, the SD-WAN infrastructure, to match how they had built and designed and configured the legacy environment. So we're moving from a legacy DM VPN to SD-WAN. And as we were noticing the deployment starting to roll out, we recognized that the engineers who were doing the deployments were treating all of the CPEs as pets, not cattle. And that prevented any real form of automation, because again, each engineer believed that they were designing it based on how they felt the environment should be built. So one of the things that we've done fairly recently is we've actually come up with automation that takes the configuration from that DMVPN device, normalizes it, and by that we mean reducing the number of access lists that are unnecessary, or reducing the number of configuration commands that were never even used or don't actually do anything, and then creating standardized templates in our Versa environment that directly convert whatever the Cisco device was doing into a set of templates for the Versa infrastructure. And we've got a variety of templates depending upon our client deployments, if they're doing 2 devices on one site, or they've got multiple sites and they're doing 1 in each site, and depending upon the transports. So we do have a variety of different options for our clients based on the connectivity they want to build. But because we've standardized those solution sets, when the engineers are either building new or they're converting from a previous technology, there's a set of drop downs and a set of forms, radio buttons, and information that gets pulled from IPAM, information that gets pulled from the config. So the engineer is not actually designing anything. They're really just becoming an operator at that level that is configuring things based on the information, based on the templates and models we have, and that leads to a far more consistent environment. We've also, because of the scale at which we're deploying our SD-WAN, we've started building our hub controllers inside of public cloud using Terraform scripts so that we can quickly spin up new sets of hub controllers, or if we've run out of scale on a particular stack, director, controller, analytics, we can actually spin up an entire stack all via automation. And we're really trying to explore pushing a lot of that into public cloud so that we can not have to wait 3 months to get a VM from our local compute team, or some of the things that I'm sure others suffer from in trying to build virtualized network infrastructure.
Super. So Peter, for your peers in the room that haven't done a big automation program, should they, and why?
I think the question starts with, what is it that you want to achieve? Because automation is a tool in your toolbox, right? It's powerful, but you need to know what problem you're actually trying to address in the first place. So it could be provisioning, it could be management of other systems, it could be it could be something like a project that we're about to start actually, which is not really anything to do with SD-WAN, but it's an enabler for SD-WAN, which is if we were to do a software upgrade for a branch device, how do we know after we've done the upgrade that everything is working correctly afterwards? And this is being able to do this kind of automated health check of the connectivity at a site to know that you've done a change successfully without disrupting the business is really important. And it's actually a prerequisite to being able to do an automation to deploy software updates on Versa automatically, which is what we want to do after that.
Super. And then how about you, Michael?
So you will never have more resources than you have today, but I hope your business continues to grow. So the answer to the question of whether or not you should be on an automation journey, if you're not, then your engineers will just start working more hours. They'll become burnt out and they will go work somewhere else. So how do you start that journey? So the way to start that journey is not, we're going to automate everything, because you won't, and you won't do it in any reasonable time. So what we started doing first was identifying low-hanging fruit, small things that annoy the heck out of everybody that we can easily automate, whether it's, again, gathering information from IPAM or identifying which VLANs are not in use in a particular fabric, or figuring out what VNI number to assign when you're building infrastructure. And by figuring out the small things, we try to think about the flywheel effect, right? Start with a small thing, start pushing just a little bit, and you'll get engineers who are either, wow, that's really cool, that helps me a lot. How did you do that? And they will want to, on their own, learn automation so they can contribute to the community. And that's really powerful, that crowdsourcing idea of having engineers identify what the engineers need in order to be more efficient. But as I mentioned before, there will be engineers who won't adopt. They just won't. And because we can't get rid of all of them today and replace them tomorrow with new engineers who already adopted or will adopt, it's important to keep that in mind and create self-service platforms or self-service tools that those engineers who are not adopting automation can still use to accelerate their velocity. And one of the things that we spend a lot of time doing is engagement surveys, where it's not, we do a mass survey, we send it to all the engineers, but you get very little penetration and response. So we actually have our product owners, we have our product managers, and yes, we do our automation in an agile mindset. Because when someone said to me, oh, when will the automation project be finished? So, well, either when I'm dead, I'm fired, or never. Because automation and what you're doing, CI/CD pipeline, continuous improvement, always looking at, here's what we do, what can we do to make this better, right? And make sure that you can also identify metrics that can validate you're actually making an impact. Just saying, well, we automated a bunch of things, well, how come engineers have not increased their velocity, or how come we're not reducing the number of ICBCs, could mean you're automating the wrong things. And that's why engaging with your customers, the engineers, engaging with the architects who are designing the intent models is critical as you go on your automation journey.
Super. So Peter, if you look out 3 years from now, where do you see automation going in the enterprise?
Simplicity would be nice. I think it's complicated at the moment. It's difficult for our engineers to deliver as much. They could deliver a lot more if things were a lot simpler. So I hope that we can have more integrations, specifically for Versa, more integration built into the platform with other systems. I was thinking about this morning, and it occurred to me that every single Versa customer needs to allocate subnets in order to provision a Versa device. So why not have a direct integration with Infoblox or Netbox or whatever IPAM you use, right? That could be an example of that.
Nice, that's great. How about you, Michael? Where do you see it going?
So I hope in 3 years' time, no one knows that network engineering even exists in our environment because it's become transparent. It's become completely self-service. When someone goes into our private cloud platform on at Fiserv, they want to spin up an instance, or they want to build some new cluster, or they want to do anything. No one has to open a ticket with network engineering because the infrastructure is automated, because the ability to deploy that environment has become completely self-service. So if you're a network engineer or an architect and you're sitting in the room and you haven't started your automation journey, listen to what I just said. If you heard what I just said, I believe in 3 years' time, you will either, if you're not on your automation journey, be the person who's responsible for making sure, because there are buggy whips out there still. You see horses and buggies at Central Park or whatever place to go to. There's someone making those buggy whips. There's not nearly as many people making the buggy whips as there were before cars, right? So if you want to be the one still making the buggy whips, hats off to you, power to you. For the rest of us who want to be more successful, want to make more money, want to learn exciting and interesting things, which I'm going to go with the fact if you're here, you want to learn exciting and interesting things, because SD-WAN and the Versa platform really have been transformational for us. That you will be part of that automation journey and driving the transformation and change in your own environments.
Super. Any questions from the audience? Kumar.
Excellent fireside chat. Thanks a lot for going with the whole automation journey. The question for both of you is, what is the role of AI and ML in automation?
You want to take it?
What is the role of which organization?
AI and ML.
Okay. So if you missed what I said yesterday, I hope to God the AI is not here yet, because if it is, I'm sitting in a pod somewhere, or this is all just some vision and illusion. But I'm going to go with the ML part. So the ML part is incredibly important. And I'll go with AI Ops, but only because that's a cool acronym. The AI ML part is significant and important because our infrastructure, especially SD-WAN, has become far more complex. It's not getting less complex. I've got overlays on top of overlays and micro-segmentation and east-west segmentation and north-south segmentation. Oh, and you've got encryption and you've got certificates and key management and you've got, well, I could go on because if you've spoken to me before, you'll say, yeah, he goes on and on. And without AI and ML, we would not be able to keep pace with the operational overhead of maintaining technologies that enable us to do so much more than we could yesterday, but are far more complex to actually operate and understand. So, because when you look at configuring, the Versa platform, the Versa director must have 100,000 buttons, knobs, and options in it, which it can be terrifyingly intimidating, but that simply means that the platform has so many different things that you can do, the Swiss Army knife for us of networking. But that means if you don't have AI Ops or ML that can understand at the rate of transformation what's going on in your environment and bubble up the real things that you need to understand, right? So for 15, 20 years, we've been asking our vendors, SNMP traps, they just don't cut it, because by the time I've gotten the trap, or I get so many traps, I have no idea what's going on. So we do an SNMP get every 5 minutes. Well, anybody ever hear of microbursts? Or, hey, the link goes up, the link goes down. During the get request, the link was up, link went down. Next get request, hey, the link is up again. Nobody knows that there was an outage. So we asked all our vendors for years, give us streaming telemetry. We want real-time data about what's going on. And oh my God, we've walked into a blizzard of everything that's going on all the time in real time. Without AI Ops or ML, the information just becomes more static and white noise. And to me, it's a crucial part of being able to operate with automation technology such as SD-WAN or even your data center fabrics or public cloud or whatever you're working in today.
Super. Any other questions from the audience? Yes.
For the gentleman from Fiserv, can you spell the name of the tool you recommended for config archival?
Nautobot, Nautobot.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir.
As you guys are applying layers of your automation, what are some of the most common challenges or problems that you guys run into?
Yeah. I think probably the biggest challenge is that we have to really get deep in the weeds in terms of developing the automation solution. So, we're writing API calls to Versa Director. It would be really nice to have an SDK at least, so that we don't have to go down to that level of detail. It kind of affects the reliability and the speed in terms of being able to ramp up. And that's kind of leads on to what I was saying before about, I actually don't really want to have to write any Python. I'd just rather connect things together and have a more abstracted direct integration. And I guess another thing, going back to that ServiceNow solution that we created, it was really complex to build. We had to connect ServiceNow to an orchestration tool to carry out the sequence of tasks. And then we had an Salt for the automation platform that actually did the task automation. So building that integration and making sure that all the systems can talk together and that it's reliable is really important. And one of the things that I was most proud of from my team member that developed the process was that she really put a lot of thought into how do we make this as robust as possible and as reusable as possible. So the process, all the components of the process, we can redeploy for other types of projects, like the subnet allocation. That's something that we've created a process for, and it can be reused many times. She also put a lot of thought into how to actually handle failure, because we've seen it after deploying that solution. You know, there's some system, you can't communicate with it, the automation fails, and now you've half deployed a solution, you've allocated a bunch of subnets, the process failed, and now you've got a mess. So she really thought about this and handled all of the failure conditions so that the entire process would get reversed back out. We have reporting on every single automation that goes through that system, and we know the success rate and the failure rate. And we are also tracking the reasons why things fail. So was it a problem with Salt? Was it a problem with ServiceNow, et cetera? So we can kind of look at it and figure out where do we need to focus on improving the reliability.
All right. Well, guys, that was super helpful. Peter, Mike, thank you very much. This is, great.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.